exploded underneath the bridge and destroyed it completely. That is, all the brickwork was destroyed. But these are the iron columns, although they were raised to the ground. They managed to re-erect them, so look at them. On the left hand side you can see some more rope marks etched into those iron columns. Quite interesting structure in our story. We call this blow-up bridge. An explosion in 1874 would have been heard right across London. Diminished, all but disappeared in the 50s and 60s. The canals fell into disuse. People throw a lot of rubbish into them. They're basically compacted mud underneath. And so they begin to fill in if they're not looked after. And the British Waterways had the inspiration to revive the canals and turn them into places of leisure and recreation, and even places where people would choose to come and live. Then you are in central London. We're looking at wildlife, some waterfowl, trees, the remains of ancient woodland. We're less than a mile from Oxford Street. The towpath on the left was built for horses to pull heavy boats. Now we use the whole canal environment for recreation and pleasure. So through this bridge we have London Zoo on both sides of the canal. Eyes right at this stage, I suggest, just in case you get a glimpse of a giant waterhole. The first enclosure just here. I just saw the back of one. There we go. Should have charged extra for that. London Zoo. One of the oldest zoos in the world. Opened in 1828, just 8 years after they officially opened the Regent Canal. The next enclosure has African hunting dogs. Again, I certainly don't guarantee that we're going to see anything. Somebody scream if you do. On the left hand side, worth having a look, even though there's nothing in it, it's the Snowden Aviary. It's a very quite avant-garde structure built in the 60s by Lord Snowden, or a company that belonged to him, who was the then Queen's brother-in-law. That is no longer an aviary, it's being refurbished, and according to that green poster there, it's going to come back as a monkey enclosure. I'm sure that will have action in it, should everything be as planned for next season. The London Zoo and zoos around the world aren't just for our entertainment. They remain important for education, for conservation, and all the zoos that collaborate and liaise with worldwide breeding programs and help protect endangered species. That is what you call a very wide beam Dutch guard on the left hand side. This platform on the right is normally open for passenger trip boats to deliver people directly to the zoo or pick them up from the zoo. That hasn't reopened since lockdown. The zoo's been thriving, but there's a little part of the canal that is yet to come back to life, so to speak. Fair amount of traffic, quite a few go boats on this afternoon. I'll just point out that this is at top speed, just about a little bit more than 4 miles an hour. And almost to the second I know that Andy is going to cut the speed, not just because there's traffic. Now it's cleared up again, but it's because we're going to be passing some more boats which are moored up to the side. And we go slowly past moored up boats so that we don't rock or damage them or yank them from their mooring pins. That means that they're tied to the bank on the right with a rope hooked into an iron circle which is called a mooring pin, embedded in the pathway. Everyone that chooses the lifestyle of living in the canal. Look at this, this is central London. People living in these, I'm calling them houseboats on the right, but these two have engines, they can travel. Bit of an Art Deco design. Very slow, leisurely ambience to the lifestyle on the canals, even in central London. It's often referred to as the liquid village, the network up and down the country of people that choose this lifestyle tend to have time to talk or get to know each other's business, look out for each other, get away from city. Very politely go slowly past. We're going to be turning left now. We're out of the section where the canal goes through the zoo. But up till after the Second World War, you used to be able to go straight ahead. You're looking straight ahead at a red Chinese restaurant called the Feng Shan. To the right of that, the canal used to have a spur that went to the back of King's Cross, which is roughly half a mile away ahead of us. That got filled in and built over after the Second World War. So this little corner here is like an enclave or another little narrowboat village. This is called Cumberland Basin. It's not your most typical view of central London. Okay, just outside central London. Taking our left turn. Towpath here has a little staircase. Goes up to the road. You can walk back from Camden, get back to the zoo there, get to Regent's Park. The graffiti starts to be on everything as we come into Camden in just another 10 minutes or so. The church on the left is called St Mark's Church, in the neighbourhood of the parish of Primrose Hill. Primrose Hill is just 10 minutes walk, the top of Primrose Hill behind. Best view across London, top of Primrose Hill. St Mark's Church is a Victorian, a bit older than it actually is. And our paddle boarders are on their knees. Another old canal bridge, we're not going to see the strips of iron, I was just wanted to, which is souvenirs and the horses. And another stretch we go very very slowly because we're passing more narrowboats at people's homes. These are the ones that are on the left, and people have come into town in their homes. They're able to moor up in visitors' moorings on the left-hand side. So on the left, you can stay there for 7 days. On the right-hand side, we're looking at private moorings on the right-hand side. And that's at the end of private gardens, and the property are all one, so to speak. Imagine that in pretty much central London. Your garden goes to the canal and you have a mooring at the end of it. And from the canal we get an opportunity to be nosy into people's private gardens. And the duckweed is the green stuff on the surface of the water. There's plenty of greenery, plenty of sunlight left. Late September now. Look up on the right at these white railings, you'll see a cow on a balcony. I don't know why. A few more bridges just ahead. The first is a road, Gloucester Avenue Road, but beyond those are 2 more railway bridges, and these were the first built over the canal, bringing railway lines into London. And just on the right, there is one of the best views of the canal, the era. Now, ahead of us here is the Pirate Castle. You can see that written up by the battlements there. Officially allowed to be called a castle by the Queen giving her permission. It is in fact a youth club built for the local community, and you can see people in canoes, and you can see the Pirate Castle barge there on the right. And we've seen people on paddleboards, all operating out of this community and youth club built in 1975. There are hundreds such activity centres up and down the canals. Now through this bridge we arrive in Camden. I think it's easy to imagine that it was originally built up as a heavy industrial area. And around here it was surrounded by factories and warehouses. All built here originally to take advantage of the super efficient system of transport of the canals. This big white building on the right, that used to be a factory owned by a company called Gilbey's, and back in the day they were famous for making gin. Many other industries long since gone when the advent of the engines and the railways and the roads meant that industry didn't depend on the canals anymore. These have been converted into flats and offices and studios. I think the tension on the left here, because the towpath goes up and over an old access tunnel, a bit like the ones I described as being bricked up back at the power station. This one is still in use. Underneath a kind of Victorian, grand Victorian kind of trade exchange building. And boats come out of there full of the rubbish from Camden town centre. Take them away along the canals to the rubbish processing site on Acton in northwest London. And we've all but arrived at our destination. We've got a bit of interesting waiting to do for a few minutes. We're going to be turning right around just where that blue narrowboat is ahead of us underneath the iron bridge. And be mooring facing the other way on the other side there.